just in family law between abuse and neglect and delinquency and child support, if you took the police out of all of that and you came up with an entirely new vision where you like properly funded social workers and community-based workers, you know, who live in those communities and who support, and like, you know, let's say it costs $1,000 to get a warrant issued, get a police hour, you know, in a cruiser to go deliver the warrant, bring the person in, get the judge to hear the case. Yeah. All that money could have been spent instead in like something productive to get that person, you know, the resources and the job training they needed to work in the first place.
That's insane. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So what, are you liking the tort work though?
Yeah. You know what? So
Yay!
I think about your class that first semester so much because it's all just negligence stuff and negligence per se, negligence this. So that's basically everything that we do. I mean, that's all I'm looking up. Yeah, so
right. It's like telling people stories, you know, like that's all, you know, you can hear it in like the protests right now. Like, why are people upset? Because people now from, you know, small town Kentucky to big city LA actually believe that it could be their kid killed in the street by, you know, like when you really believe that it's someone who did something wrong and you're willing to blame them for what they did, then people don't care. But once you can convince people that it could be your son or your husband or your father, that's when people, and that's what tort law is, like, you know, that it's, you know, it's your family that could have been killed by this drunk driver or this texting driver or whatever. Is he healthy now? Wasn't he in a terrible accident?
Oh.
Sorry, I'm eating ice cream. Literally the worst thing to eat. Your boss, wasn't he in some horrible car accident?
Oh, you know, so I've never met him, but I did hear he was in an accident. I think he's fine because nobody said anything about it. But
okay.
Yeah, I think he's fine.
Okay, it was like a huge deal. It was like, does he ride a motorcycle? I can't remember if he was on, I know it was a bike, but I don't remember if he was a bike on a cycle bike or a motorcycle. I can't remember. But it was a big deal.
I think he's kind of heavy set, so it might have been a bicycle. But it also might have been a motorcycle.
Can you imagine, though, if you're the driver who hit someone and then you're like, wait, I just hit the hammer? Oh, no.
This is the worst person to Yeah. Oh, my God. It's funny though. I like seeing this side of it, the work side, because last semester I tried to do some legal stuff, but I got wrapped up in doing something else. Because I was working with this company, right, and they had me. Well, it was Lockheed Martin, but they had me with the legal team and then with their engineer team, and somehow it was just bad timing because it was cool, but the I didn't get any legal experience because the woman who does their law stuff, she just had a baby and she was out like the whole time I was there. So she actually the whole time I was there. So it just happened like that. But
that's a bummer. So that was last semester?
That was last summer, yeah. And then
Lockheed Martin in Texas?
In Dallas, yes, man.
That's crazy. So are you from Texas?
So yeah, my mom, I left Michigan like when in middle school and moved with my mom and to Dallas, and that's kind of where I grew up. And then I went back to Michigan, and I was watching the child support video.
Did you see the Indiana one yet?
Yes. So I was watching that live while I was up in Michigan after I moved back. But that was probably one of the craziest moments I've ever seen in sports, like live.
Oh my God, I remember exactly where I was when that happened, and I've never been happier for the TV that you could rewind. Oh my God, it was like December 1st. I remember the day.
Man. Everybody's I just remember everybody's hands going up at the same time, and I had never seen the stadium, so
oh my God,
it was cool. That was amazing.
Were you go to Michigan State undergrad?
Yes. Yeah.
Were you there for their championship?
Championship. They haven't had a championship in.
Oh, they're just like Final Four all day long.
A lot of fun. Yeah, I was there for the burning couches and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So are you leading BALSA again this year too?
So right now I am because the advisors said that they wanted to. So I wanted to do the elections early April, Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
You do it.
No. I just took my kids to the dentist, and now everybody's eating sugar. We all just went. I'm like, cavity free ice cream for me. So my kid's playing outside, but he bought a Slurpee and didn't want to bring the Slurpee outside. Too risky.
Oh yeah, it's in milk. But
so we did not have elections then because of the end of the year.
I was gonna do it, and then we didn't do it because everything switched right to online. We were gonna do it early April, and then I was thinking, okay, I'll do it in May. But then people wanted to do it during finals. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do it during finals. Like, I don't know. I know there's a few people that wanted to do it like immediately, but we're all studying for finals. And even though the bar was just a D-, I mean, that's still, you still got to make sure you get it. So
yeah. So unnerving.
Yeah, so I was just like, let's do it in May. Well, in that time, the advisors were like, let's just wait till the fall. And so pretty much, and it seemed like, yeah. And then, so I kind of asked for folks' input, and nobody really emailed me back, but the e-board was thinking like, do it in the fall. So I did it. I wanted to do it earlier, so then we can get people set up, but most people said do it in the fall, so I just went with that, and we'll just
I hope we're in person in the fall. Like those kinds of like community-based things are going to be so hard. Like, class is going to be hard enough, but like just like building community is so important. Like it's hard enough for any student to make it through the first year, let alone a student of color, let alone a student of color who's moved from out of town, and is brand new to the area. Like to not have the groups and support and like a chance to like walk the halls and like, you've got so-and-so, I had so-and-so, let me tell you what you need. Like that doesn't happen on Zoom.
I didn't think of that one. You're right. Now you're completely isolated on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like after you've been on call, you need to leave with your classmates, laugh in the hallways, banter about what just happened in class and like let it go, shake it off and let it go.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. For me, 2L, it was an easy transition. I loved online because I'll roll out of bed and like just jump into class. But
I love it. I've actually been way healthier with online. So I'm like, I waste so much time in the car.
That's what I
said. Like, yeah, it's like a whole extra hour of my life. Like, and I've like made a point of it. I'm like, this hour is mine. Yeah. That's what I spent in the car. And I'm like, I do an hour of exercise every day ever since I've gotten like one tank of gas in like 4 months. Cause I'm like, there's no point.
Exactly.
I'm not driving anywhere. I feel like this whole thing, if we manage it right, it could be so much healthier.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I mean, we have the kind of like the technology to do a lot of big things, but I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
Like transition.
I know. I'm anxious to hear what they decide. I'm supposed to be teaching at the University of Baltimore next year, and the university is in a terrible financial situation. So they've basically said publicly that they can't afford to open. Like it takes a lot of money to do what you have to do to get, to comply with the CDC, to have masks and temperature checks or whatever you're going to have to do. And so they've decided, and like the university was already like they don't have dorms or food halls or anything like that. So already they're more like an online. So they're like, look, this is our moment. We're going to go online. Yeah. But the law school doesn't want to do it. And so they're actually talking about like breaking the law school off from the university and like putting it somewhere else. And I'm like, I can't handle any more job security issues.
But I mean, literally, you're like unanimously like the best teacher. I think anybody across the board, everybody loves you. You're gonna do great every week.
Well, the crazy part is when at first I was like 100%, I'm leaving because I've got to, get near my family and I can't keep doing this. Yeah. And then, but that was specifically because it was so hostile. Everybody was so angry about online. And I was like, I don't have a thick skin. I can't handle this. And I don't care. Like, I'm not fighting to teach online because I think it's so great. I wanted to stay at the U of L. Yeah. And so anyway, but I just couldn't handle the adversity. And so I looked for a job and found one. But the crazy part is, I only have a job for a year. And now I don't think anyone would object to letting me stay teaching from Virginia. and then just come on campus for faculty meeting, like what I was doing initially in the fall. I think everybody would actually be okay with it.
Yeah,
so crazy enough, I actually might not even end up leaving because like I'm definitely gone next year, but like Baltimore's far. It's 57 miles from my house and Beltway miles. So it's going to be like an hour and a half, you know, to be comfortable of driving just to get there. And I'm like, it's only an hour flight to Louisville. I can fly there closer. So I'm not, it's crazy. I might not end up leaving, but we'll see. I'm not a big fan of Colin though. If Colin stays, he is not impressing me.
Oh gosh.
Did you ever meet Susan? I loved her.
No, I never met her. I heard great things. I hear her. She
was great. She wasn't perfect either, and especially on like diversity issues, but man, Colin, I don't know. I don't understand it. He just keeps wanting to impress all these conservatives in town and be like buddy with, like, I don't get it. I don't know what he's trying to do or what he's trying to achieve, but I've been super frustrated with him. So anyway, we should chat. So how's family law? Like the material you already had con law, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yes, professor.
Did you have Marcuson?
No.
Powell?
I had Powell for 2. Are you talking about second year?
Yeah.
Or second part? Yeah, I had Powell.
Oh, cool. Okay, good. So you already know all this stuff anyway. Yeah. You're a pro.
Not really. But you've taught me a lot. So basically, I mean, answering questions is like my downfall, right? But
it's just like you can understand it when you're hearing it, but then applying it again.
Yeah, and applying it organized, right? I think even with my research at my job, like I'll read the cases, but I have so much information, this case here, and bringing it all together is what takes me a long time and gets confusing for me. So I'm working on that, but I know that you always set up a formula and it's really systematic. So
yeah,
definitely want to learn that.
Cool. Do you have you started to put like an organization, like a list or a flow chart together for how to handle the constitutional law questions?
So I have and this is real rough. I should have been more prepared today, but I have like eight little things, like 8 steps to kind of go through. And I don't know if that's too many, but
no. What are they?
Okay, so the first is identify fundamental right, equal protection, or both. And
good.
Second is identify the classification and what it is infringing, or what is it an infringement on.
Good, but then take what you just did and make it a have it go the 2 ways. So you've got is it a fundamental right? I can't write. Is it a fundamental right? Is it an equal protection? Oops. And then you've got to have them go 2 different directions. Okay. And so it sounds like you're trying to keep them both going. That's the worst trying. But you get what I mean. But just split those out.
Okay. FREQP. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Good. So let's follow just equal protection. So which one do you feel more comfortable with?
I don't know.
Okay, so let's do the fundamental rights one because I think that's more family law specific. So after you ask that first question, if it's a fundamental right, then what do you do next?
So on this, I would, which I don't know if this is right, so I may be skipping a step. So, then I would identify the classification and what it infringes.
That's that split. So identify the classification. That would be for your equal protection wing. Mm-hmm. And then what fundamental right is being infringed, that would be on your fundamental right side.
Okay, I see what you're saying. The classification. Okay, and then this one is what is being infringed. Okay. So then I would say what the government objective was?
Yep, good. And if it's a fundamental right, what does the government's objective have to be?
Strict scrutiny. Okay.
Yep. So what is so it has to be a compelling government objective.
Yes, and then and narrowly tailored, right?
Yep.
So just
perfect.
So state that just one sentence. This is this fundamental right is governed by strict scrutiny or subject to strict scrutiny standard review.
Yeah, exactly. And then here, I'm actually going to draw it on my paper and hold it up because I think that might actually be easier. Right, but hold on.
And thank you for meeting me today too, big time.
Oh my God, of course. No, this is great. I've done office hours with like online classes, and it usually ends up just being like cricket. So it's so much better to wait and just use my time when people are actually ready for it. Yeah. Hold on, let me just draw this out. So my handwriting is super terrible, but I want to try to hold it up there. I'm going to start just at the beginning. So you'll see that so for equal protection, we're starting with equal protection and then asking what is the classification. But the reason we're asking what is the classification is to figure out if that classification is going to get you some sort of strict scrutiny. And if the classification is on the basis of race, you'll apply strict scrutiny or national origin. If that classification is on the basis of sex or legitimacy, it will get intermediate scrutiny. And if it's on the basis, so there should really be a third arrow there.
Of anything else, rational basis?
We'll get rational basis, exactly. And then for both of those, you see at the bottom, no matter what the classification is, you'll run through that test of what are the government objectives. And then if it's strict scrutiny, those objectives have to be compelling. If it's rational basis, they only need to be legitimate. And then next you look at whether the means chosen are narrowly tailored or whether they are rationally related, depending on which way you're going. But if you put that kind of flow chart in for equal protection, you can't go wrong. The one thing that I think catches people, or I should say it more positively, the one thing that positions people for success is when you get to the means selected, you should say it explicitly because it's whatever the statute said. So like yesterday on our practice, only then we said, okay, the means selected is to sign an affidavit saying that the purpose of marriage is to procreate. And then that's when I asked Juanita, well, what happens if you won't sign this affidavit? And the answer is you can't get married. And that's when we all of a sudden realized we had something else that we're dealing with. So it's helpful to just flag it there. And then let me do the other one. Hold on. And then let me draw the other one. And I'll text you like a picture of this after. Yes, we are.
I'm just getting water, don't worry.
Okay, and then if you see at the, let me try to position this right. Okay, so for the fundamental rights question, the first question we ask is there a fundamental right infringed? And that could be privacy, procreation, marriage, or abortion. And then you'll see I jut off there, and if it's abortion, you kick it over and you use that undue burden standard. If it's any of the other things we studied, marriage, intimacy, procreation, then you stay on that track, and then all roads lead you back to those two questions again at the bottom. Perfect. It's just so you could get to strict scrutiny either through equal protection with a class, race, or national origin, or you could get there through a fundamental right, and then you would do the same two steps. What were the means chosen? What were the government's interests? But you'll want to split those two out for exam purposes. And so I would work on like I would love to see, like if you got something like either drawn up, if you're visual, or typed up, and send it along. And then that's your like template for answering the exam question. Okay. And then I would the second thing I would do for exam readiness is have that a case chart or a list of cases ready. So like when you see treating, suggesting that families, that are best structured with kids in the context of marriage, it should immediately take you to Obergefell and like the conservative framing there, but it should also take you to, other reproductive, like Lawrence and things like that.
Okay. All right. I can do that for sure.
Cool. And then after, what did you have after? Because the next question that you had was, is it a classification or a fundamental right infringe? So that keeps our fork going. And then what did you have next?
Then I had for number 3, I had state the government objective.
Good.
I had identify the standard with strict scrutiny or whatever.
Perfect.
Then I had tell if the government objective is, compelling, important, or legitimate.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Tell if the statutory means is narrowly tailored, substantially related, I think, or related. And then I had suggest amendments to solve the law, and then 8 is cite cases.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. That's an A answer model. And then just make sure at the beginning you realize that you might have to. The only critique I have is right at the beginning when you kept the classification and the fundamental right together. You might need to go through your entire list once for a fundamental right and then the entire series of questions again for a classification if there's both on the exam.
Okay.
But it'll go quickly if there are. Cool. That's beautiful. You should be really proud of that. That's good.
Yeah. So I'm figuring it out. It's about how many points you can get, and that's really helpful. All right.
No, and it'll help you with the bar too, because there's always some sort of question requiring you to do this kind of constitutional analysis. And my sense is that people are so overwhelmed when they take con law with the volume of stuff that like seeing the clarity of like how to write it up seems so overwhelming because everything you studied just seems so murky. Yeah. So I think it's really helpful to just focus on like 1 or 2 rights like we're doing. And all of a sudden, it's so much easier to apply.
I agree. Thank you. Yeah, you really, showed me a lot with the test skills.
I'm missing that whiteboard so badly. Oh. I like draw on that board all day long. My bad stick people. It's killing me not having it.
I think you do well with this one, but you crack me up because you're like, you're just dogging it while you're doing it. You're like, this is awful.
It's terrible. I don't know why it's so clunky. For the fall, I'm going to switch to Zoom because someone told me if you switch to Zoom, you can join with a iPad on its own and use the iPad Draw and I'm like, ooh, that sounds good. I might do that. But
yeah, that'd be awesome, honestly. So then, so
your list is perfect on that.
Awesome, sweet, thank you. So the family law question, so valid marriage, we have to say if it's a valid marriage?
Yeah, if I ask it. I don't ask that one every single time. Okay. I ask it almost every time, though. That's kind of like jurisdiction, valid marriage. Like those are ones that you'll see one or the other, and it just sort of depends, what it is. Okay. But yeah, so you might have to answer whether it's a valid marriage.
Okay. Would that be like if he was married already, or he or she or whoever was?
Yeah, it would be so small. I can't even remember testing it any time recently. I used to have short answer questions on my exams where I asked some of those smaller things. Okay. But if you saw it, that's where it would be. The most typical first question that I put on the exam is what are their grounds for divorce, fault and no fault, and defenses. Discuss.
Okay. And so then when, and how can they divorce? So that's just fault-based chart, basically?
Yep, okay. Exactly. And we'll do a little bit more with that. I can't remember what week it is, but there's a little teeny bit about jurisdiction. Like if you decide to divorce and you want to, flee to Ohio first, could you divorce in Ohio or do you have to live there for a while first? So there's a teeny little bit still to do on that, but that's exactly right. So when can you divorce, on what grounds, where can you divorce, and when? And almost always the answer is not yet. Soon, but not yet.
Okay. So yeah, gotta make sure my definitions are good on those. So okay.
Your chart was good though. You had the chart. So if I were you, I'd just start, like, if you have access to a printer, just start printing out some of those sources. Like if you got a good grade on it and it's ready to roll, like don't overthink it. Like those points, like they're worth like 5 points. They're tiny, tiny point values. Like it's con law, equitable distribution, and child support where you should spend your time like really, really perfecting it. For the smaller things like prenups and the grounds for divorce, your chart should have you pretty much ready to roll.
Perfect. Okay. And so then on that next one with the how property is divided, so the equity. So I like what you gave us the class was last night. Last night with the. So you're gonna kind of give us a statute and then facts, and we're gonna take that and say under this statutory provision, this legal conclusion, and then we say it like Scott would get the won't get the house or whatever. Somebody will get the house. Okay, and then
exactly.
Okay, and then we just.
The only thing to be careful of is make sure you do the full step first, and then you move to the next step. So what I mean by that is, say you have 10 items of property that I've given you, a car, a second car, a bank account, a loan, a house. Do the first step is to pull out all of the separate property from the marital property bucket. And then the next step is to distribute the marital property bucket. Do all of the pulling out and then do the distribution of the marital bucket as a whole. The biggest mistake that people make on the exams, and I don't know why it happens, because we do lots of practice problems, we do lots of run-throughs in class, but there is always someone who gets to the exam and they're like, why don't I just take it piece by piece and let's follow the car through? But you can't do that, because part of that contribution is weighing the relative size of how much they're walking away with in separate properties. So you've got it total, like in a perfect world, you'd be able to total it up and say, Scott leaves the marriage with $100,000 of assets and $50,000 of debt, and Susie leaves the marriage with $200,000 of debt. And then you'd see the disparity that way.
Okay. So, all right. So first take out the separate property, then do the marital property and follow that through.
Exactly.
I gotta get quicker with it though, but I think I'll be good.
Well, you really will. And eventually what you'll get really quick at is when you read the question for the first time. I think a lot of folks move toward color coding, because you'll see it's Mad Libs, right? The house and the cars and the bank accounts are all property, and the income and the dividend, the money, the cash is all child support. And so you'll quickly see that if I've given you any number, it either goes to equitable distribution or it goes to spousal support, but never to both.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, this is exciting. I'm learning a lot. I'm loving it.
Yeah, well, you're doing so great. I was so glad a few folks stayed for the review yesterday too. I'm going to keep adding more of those, because I think people are just tired, and if it's just a generic open office hour, nobody's going to be motivated to come. So I'm going to try. It's kind of fun because I know everybody in the class, and it's the summer and everyone's tired. So this is my chance. I'm going to try some fun games. I'm going to do I'm going to try to make the office hours more fun, because I think if it's, people are studying at night and on the weekends, they don't want to come and, just ask questions. They want to try to mix it up and do it a new way. So I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to do one with a Kahoot. And, but I think we're going to do some of these fun things outside of class.
No, I'm really ready. I'm really ready. This is going to be great. I'm excited, honestly. I'm not good.
I've been working on it. It's so funny. I thought I was decently good at online teaching, and now I'm going to all these trainings, and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much I don't know. Wow. There's a whole world out there to make learning more engaging for people, and to meet people where they are, and get everyone engaged. So it's fun teaching a summer class, because I'm I can have more fun in a summer class and try some new things.
Yeah, no, this is okay. If you're not good, this is the best online class I've ever taken. So that's the thing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. I have a friend who teaches at Howard. He is the best online teacher I've ever seen. He does this thing, this poll everywhere thing, where the students are participating. You know how I ask questions and have you guys type it in the chat? Mm-hmm. He somehow, it's like wizardry, but you guys text it instead and it populates on the screen. So I could say, like what words were associated with the women's movement, at the time of Griswold. And you guys would be putting them up. They would just be popping on the screen. And then all of a sudden, like you feel like you're in the class and like it creates a Wordle and like you can save it. And it's like a word cloud that has your own words. Wow. It's insane. He has all these games like built in where you're just like on your phone and all you have to do is sign up once and then you just start texting these things in and you could do a quick survey and like, I can't even think of a good example, but we could do child support and we could do a quick survey and you could have to put in your number and all your numbers would show up on the screen and you'd start to build confidence as you're doing it as your class. I don't know. It's crazy. He is the best professor I have ever seen in my life.
That's amazing.
And now I'm like, show me your ways. I want to do all this.
Yeah. No, you're legitimately awesome already. So anything else is just extra pretty much. This is great.
It's fun too because a lot of this stuff, like like the Jeopardy game, I'm like, once I've made this once, like we can always do this, right? Like it just takes time to make the stuff once. So like forever, like all of these things, I hope will stay in class because it can be so much more engaging than we make it. Yeah. And like we all need to stop romanticizing the Socratic method and pretend that it's great. Like what's great is for professors to stimulate their students to think for themselves and and the Socratic method is one way of doing it, but it's a fear-based, power-based way to do it. Yeah. There are other ways to do it that are more like lawyering. And so I think it's awesome.
I admire you and I think I'll speak for a lot of folks, but you think outside the box and you like can connect things and that's really impressive. A lot of people, and I'd say even me, kind of straight line and I don't look around too much. And the way you do that is just, it's like inspiring almost.
Oh, that's awesome. But that's exactly like, I just remember law school. I grew up on a farm. Like I had no business being in law school. Like, I just think anything you can do to make the law like come alive to people and like make them feel like, I just think a lot of people feel disempowered. Like once you start, and especially students of color, like once you start studying the law, you're like, oh, I don't know it right, or I don't understand it. Or like, I've got to just memorize what the Supreme Court said. Well, the Supreme Court's a complete mess and they say nothing coherent. Like you have to be like empowered to be like, wait, am I crazy or is this all made up? No, that. I just anything you can do to help people like feel empowered to like make it their own and like critique it and like call it out. Like why is this what it is? Like this is a terrible rule. Who came up with this and why? And it's such a more engaging way. Like instead of studying it out from a place of like just memorization or respect that it like has to be this way just because it is that way now.
I remember first semester, I was thinking that I had to memorize all of the cases, right? So it's fun. Yeah. It's a week before finals. I tried to reread, like, or at least skim through all these torts cases, and you're like, no, don't do that. And I'm reading the ordinary person, like, you only need this much, and I'm reading, like, the whole thing. Just a big waste of time, so it's pretty funny.
No, but that's what you think, right? Because you're like, well, we read all these cases, so of course I'm going to be tested on these cases. Yeah. And because that's where like law school's so screwed up, and that's where like faculty are struggling so much right now. They're like, what are we going to do if people don't read the book? And I'm like, nobody's, like your law practice is not you sitting around and reading a bunch of cases. Mm-hmm. It's sometimes that, but it's putting stuff together, like you said. And we don't teach people how to do that because we just teach you start at page 1 and read through to the end. And by the end, you're just going to know the answers. Yeah. But that's not it at all. Like we have to start applying it way quicker. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm teaching a class, the version of the class I'm teaching at Baltimore. I'm teaching 25 students a 7 credit hour course that is torts and legal writing put together. Like this is my dream class because you can tell that I'm like trying to teach lawyering and trying to teach litigation and maybe trying to teach a little Civ Pro and all this stuff. And now I get 7 credit hours. So all the stuff you learn about research. So instead of me teaching you, about a jurisdictional, like about negligence per se, I can like tie that into you studying statutes and have you go find the craziest statute you can find in your home state regulating anything from like tattoo parlors to like fish sales at a, pet store, right? Like, and then we can say, okay, like you can use, teach that, tie it into torts, tie it into negligence per se. It's awesome. I'm so excited for what that classroom could be like.
Yeah, no, they're going to be
700 hours. And also to tie a substantive class into writing so that writing doesn't sit on its own is so cool.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be so well-rounded by the end of that, because I'm looking now and I'm like, this helps me. School has helped me read these cases, and I can find the law and understand the law, put that together. But now I have to make an argument, right? And I guess that's a little bit of lawyering skills. But I have to make an argument. You got to deal with people. You got to negotiate or whatever. You got to talk to different places. You have to draft things. And if you don't do that in class, I mean, that's tough.
That's where people get super mad and they're like, what the heck did law school do? What did I just pay for? Yeah. Right. And that's where it becomes like this elitist institution where like you just paid for the privilege of being able to figure it out on your own on trial under fire at your law firm. Yeah. Like, it's just like, it's crazy how little we actually do to prepare people for the practice of law. I'm like, it's crazy.
And you told us two things. So I'm going to be quick. But the first one, when you said you're trying to teach all these different things, I remember a specific example in class when you were talking about joinder, and you even dropped what rule it was. And that, went over my head. But then the next year, I'm like, I think I wrote it down. I'm like, okay, this is like rule 20-something of Civ Pro.
That's awesome.
And you dropped it. I was like, do we need to know that? And you're like, you don't need to know that. But and then, and what was the second point? We were just talking about something, but dang, I forgot what it was. But it was something else you said in class that it made me think of. But
that's awesome. But I hope people tell you this every day. You were born to be a lawyer, and like any obstacle you've ever faced in law school is a BS obstacle that has nothing to do with what real lawyering has to do with being able to listen to people, like learn the law, but then take the law and make it work for actual people, like not just taking it as what it is, but like molding it into what you need it to be. And you are brilliant at those things. You are born to be a lawyer, and the legal community needs you desperately. And I will be sending you business as soon as you are ready to go.
Thank you. That means more than you know, for real. Really.
That's awesome. I hope you get to meet. So you've not been able to meet the big dog yet?
No, I think I will.
Oh.
Yeah, but I got to drive over to the other thing. I work with Michael Shinara, so him and I.
No.
That's my guy too. So when they told me who it was, I'm like, oh, I love that guy because. First week of law school, my car does this weird thing. It really wasn't anything, but I thought it was something because it was making a noise by the brake. Like a little spring broke or something. But I thought, should I drive it? Should I not? So I posted on Facebook. I'm like, hey, can my car is, not working. Can somebody pick me up?
No way.
120 people liked it. Only one person commented, and it was Michael. And I was like...
No, I don't want your thumbs up. I want you to keep me from doing a thumbs up to have to hitchhike to class.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
So it was Michael, and ever since then he's the man to me. So that's cool.
He is the best. He's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's a cool office. They're cool.
That's awesome. Well, I hope we keep doing this every week. It's just a good way to chill. Like I said, I official office hours are always a bust, and then they also they stress other people out too, because I tell people I'm having them, and then you think you're missing something, but nobody's coming to that. So instead, it was actually great because I said we were talking about you meeting, and then I got 3 emails after that of people to meet. I'm like, yes, I'm serious. I say it every email, but I actually mean it. Let's meet. Yeah. It's so much better to this is what this is the part that's lost on campus is the sit down in the chair and just talk it out and figure it out. So
yeah, no, I should have been coming more from the beginning. I've talked to a lot of the kids in our class though, and they really love the class. Seems like, and they really want to do well. So I like the people. I mean, the people are cool. Drew,
yeah,
you introduced me to Drew. Now he knows Nate, who I knew because he was in Bolsa. So we talked for a second. He's got a awesome perspective because he said he was in a minority area, grew up, and then he's a police officer.
Yeah.
And a biracial child, so he was breaking some stuff down to me, and I was like, wow, that's pretty neat.
Amazing. He's amazing.
Nice guy. Seems like a real nice guy. Yeah.
I've had the best my brother is a cop in upstate New York, and he's a white cop in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and my brother, like, he represents everything that is wrong with policing, like the way he's taught, the way he's trained, the way he disregards the law, the way he has this machismo, masculine, I'm in charge, you better respect, like, anyway, everything. And so I've talked to Drew hours about it, and I'm like, I'm like, he's the first police officer I've ever been able to say, like, why the heck is it like this? Like, I don't, and like, he really sees it and he understands it, and he can, like, explain objectively how it is. And like, I talked to him not long after the George Floyd video had come out, and he said, I didn't even miss a beat. And he was like, any officer who watches that and thinks that it was okay should turn in their badge. And I'm like, well, thank you. But if officers would say that, then we wouldn't think the entire police force needs to be defunded. If more people would say, yeah, of course that's wrong, then we wouldn't be so angry. Yeah. But nobody will say that because they all want to defend their brothers first over. Anyway, he's amazing. I have had some of the best talks with him of like all year about that, about families, and like, he has a child from another marriage, and like COVID kept him from seeing that child. Like, that's like, like little things that I wouldn't have even thought of, but like, he's a police officer. He's in the public every day. He can't protect himself super well. And I haven't talked to him lately, but he had gone months without being able to see the child for, not crazy reasons. Like, I get it, but like, that's horrible.
Oh yeah, that's tough. That's really tough.
But we have great. And then Brian, have you met Brian Fields?
Yeah, he's cool. I forgot how I met him, but really nice guy. Really nice dude.
He donated plasma to a guy in North Carolina. There was a news story about it. So he and Susie Marino. Do you know Susie?
Susie, yeah. She's cool too.
She also did it, but she did it for a family member. But Brian Fields, in the beginning of the spring semester, flew all the way to Duke Hospital and donated plasma, an incredibly painful procedure, to a random person there who he happened to be a match with.
Wow.
And like in the middle of law school, just for like this altruistic, like, I have this and I can help someone else, so I'm going to. And I'm like, goodness. What? It's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And he wouldn't even tell anybody that too. Like,
no, I was like, we need to do a news story about it. He's like, It's not a news story. I'm like, a law student giving their bodily fluids to keep somebody alive. The person was dying of cancer and is like alive now thanks to Brian. And he's like so humble about it. I'd be telling everyone all over Facebook.
Yeah, that's insane. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, wow.
We have a really great group of people, though.
Exactly. So, and all the best to your brother. I give I know it's dangerous right now too, and hopefully it changes up or something. But I see how like some people, like with Drew's position, it's hard to be the very one person or minority, and maybe you're not the one person, but you don't want to go against the whole group. It's kind of hard, yeah.
No, but that's where change has to come from within. And that's the one structural flaw right now, is that all of these movements like Minneapolis and like, the city council, like instead of change coming from within, these people now have this like, this, what's the word? Like indignation that like someone else again dared tell them what to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's so frustrating because I feel like it would be, like, we desperately need people on the inside to say enough is enough. Even for totally selfish reasons, like, I don't want to walk my community and have people look at me like they look at me. Like, I was at the protests in DC last week, and like, people looked at every law enforcement there, like, with disgust, and like, I'm like, that's what should motivate these cops. It's like, you're brave and you signed up to do something, putting yourself in incredible risk that is totally thankless. But like, how do you go to bed at night knowing that everyone in your community right now looks at you with disgust? Like, don't you want to change yourself? Yeah. Like, to get the respect back that, but I didn't even know like all this history of the police departments, like initially being put, officially being constructed to police slavery. I didn't know all that. Like, I sort of accept it as normal. Like, of course every town would have a police department, but we didn't have police departments in, colonial Massachusetts, right? We had militias instead.
You're right. Yeah. I don't know. It's wild. So, well, we got.
But I hope that I fear that like my read of where we are right now is that mainstream America has moved way closer to understanding racial justice, like sincerely understanding racial justice issues and being ready to like move in that direction, but that police have actually moved deeper in the other direction of, you know, feeling indignant and masculine and emasculated and like every worse. So that worries me, but hopefully. But I really feel like there's real change. Like when I see like people marching in LA, DC, and New York does not impress me. That you could get people to march in, you know, DC any day of the week for anything, right? But like marching in like rural Kentucky for racial justice, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's what moves me is these like rural towns and like there's real change happening in like ordinary, like, you know, not, you know, places that have not seen the worst of police brutality. And that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. No, I get what you're saying earlier about, I don't really understand all of it, but I've looked into more on the defund the police, and I'm understanding it now too. Because at first I was like, oh, we do need the police. Yeah, but no. So it's wild. I gotta read more on it and do other things.
I wish that they would rebrand it. I'm like, that's a terror. Like the branding is like defund, like Planned Parenthood was like a political backlash, right? Like you lost our trust, so we're going to defund you. But really what we mean is like reallocate police dollars to public safety tools that will work for like, you know, like let's not use a hammer for everything unless you need a hammer. But if you need something, you know, softer, then use something softer. And like, that's where I just feel like we are like, there's so much room to the amount of money the police takes to do what it does. They're so infused with family law. So I have to run. My kids and I are doing an online magic class.
Y'all go have fun. Thank you for this big time. This helped a lot.
I'll see you next week. Same time, same channel.
Sounds great. All right.
All right. So you have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
Take care.
She's awesome. She's real cool as ever.